Dan Hope, 11 Warriors, joins us after their semifinal win Friday night against Texas. Dan, thanks for your time. It looked like early that Ohio State was way too much. Not that they were going to dominate and blow them out, but then they started playing with their food a little bit, and a couple of penalties that hurt them, like it hurts anybody. In the end, how do you summarize what we saw Friday night, how both teams responded to adversity? The screen pass at the end of the first half was nuts. And then, of course, the strip by Warren, that ended the game, by all means ended the game.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in these big games like this, it all just comes down to, who makes that big play in the fourth quarter to change the game. And that's certainly what Jack Sawyer did there on that 4th and goal play. I mean, you're talking about Texas. They score on that, goal line possession. It's a tie game and anything can happen. And, Ohio State's defense collectively did a phenomenal job there on that goal line stand. Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom doing a great job blowing up that 2nd down run play for a 7-yard loss, which then really forced Texas into a passing situation on those 3rd and 4th down plays. And then for, Jack Sawyer to make the play he did. I mean, it really went from, someone sitting there in the press box covering the game. Until that play, I'm sitting there going, I have no idea who's going to win this game. And then just like that, in an instant, it was like Ohio State just won the game. So, I think, certainly that play was the biggest story of the game. But, like you mentioned, that screen pass was huge because, it felt like Texas was going to have all the momentum going into halftime. And then Ohio State was able to kind of take that back with the screen to Henderson. Didn't necessarily sustain that momentum there in the 3rd quarter. It really took them until the 4th quarter to go up there and win the game. But to put together that drive they did at the start of the 4th quarter, 88 yards, 13 plays, and then, of course, following it up with the big defensive touchdown, it was really those 2 moments that won this game for the Buckeyes.
Dan, I'm a big atmosphere and vibes guy. You said you're the press box, but just what was that like in the press box? And what was that like just seeing the stadium, particularly for the Sawyer play there at the end? I mean, it seemed like pandemonium on TV. I can only imagine what it must have been like to just be amongst the people there at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I probably got a better feel for it after the game than I did in the moment because I was up in the press box. But just being down on the field, I was there when Jack Sawyer was walking off the field. And, if all the Ohio State fans there, it really felt like, a hero exiting the stage with the kind of ovation that he got from the Buckeye fans. And so, it was a pro-Texas crowd. I mean, Texas did have more fans there, which you would expect for a game being in Texas, but Ohio State fans still showed up very well for as far away as it was from home. And there were certainly a lot of them there to, help Jack Sawyer and the rest of those Buckeyes bask in that moment.
Dan, how much can we, from these 2 teams, look, as the quarterbacks at Notre Dame's different, a lot of things are different. The quarterback at Ohio State's different. How much can we glean from last year's game that ended because Marcus Freeman forgot a guy on the field there? Or do you consider this as a completely different slate with not much to learn from that one?
TicketClub is a unique platform that aims to revolutionize the way consumers purchase event tickets. It primarily functions as a membership-based ticketing platform, offering a wide array of tickets to concerts, sporting events, theater shows, and other live entertainment events. The main distinction of TicketClub from other ticketing platforms is its commitment to delivering tickets with no service fees. Features and benefits of TicketClub. One of the most distinctive features of TicketClub is the absence of service fees. Most ticketing platforms charge service fees, which can elevate the cost of the ticket significantly. However, with TicketClub, the price you see is the price you pay. This translates to substantial savings, especially for frequent ticket buyers. TicketClub also offers a diverse selection of event tickets. From Broadway shows and music concerts to NFL games and comedy shows, TicketClub has it all. This diversity makes it an ideal ticketing platform for all entertainment lovers. Reliability and pricing. When it comes to reliability, TicketClub does not disappoint. The platform guarantees the delivery of authentic tickets on time for the event. In the rare case that a problem arises, the company promises to refund 100% of the purchase price. TicketClub operates on a membership basis. Non-members can still purchase tickets, but they are subject to small service fees. To enjoy the no service fees benefit, one can join as a member at a fee of $49.99 per year. However, certain groups, such as military personnel and first responders, can receive free memberships as a thank you for their service. Customer support. Customer support is a critical aspect of any business, and TicketClub excels in this area. The platform provides comprehensive customer support to ensure all queries and issues are handled in a timely and professional manner. Customers can reach out via phone or email, and the Help Center on their website offers answers to frequently asked questions. Unique features and benefits. In addition to the no service fees feature, TicketClub has a unique feature called the TicketClub Premier program. This allows members to earn points on their purchases, which can be redeemed for discounts on future purchases. This feature adds to the overall value provided by the platform and encourages customer loyalty. In conclusion, the introduction to TicketClub reveals a platform that is designed with the customer in mind. The no service fees policy, diverse event selection, reliability, competitive pricing, and excellent customer support make TicketClub an appealing choice for purchasing event tickets. Whether you're a sports fanatic, a theater enthusiast, or a concert goer, TicketClub is your reliable partner for event tickets.
I think it's a different game. I mean, it's 16 months have passed since then. You're talking about early in the 2023 season versus the very end now of a 2024 season. And there's so many new key pieces on both these teams. Like you mentioned, both quarterbacks. Yeah, there are still a lot of players on both sides who were there last year. But I mean, you think about the way that Ohio State Notre Dame game ended a year ago. It was Kyle McCord handing the ball off to Chip Trayanum. Both those guys played for different college football teams this year. So I think so much changes on a year-to-year basis in college football now that it's hard to look back at a game from 16 months ago and really say that that's going to influence a whole lot of what happens in this year's game. I think probably the thing that, looking at it from kind of the Ohio State perspective, looking at Notre Dame, I think the thing you take away is, in that game a year ago, they were a team that was, a really strong defensive team that, wanted to run the ball. And I think Notre Dame is still that kind of team. I think, Ohio State a year ago was an elite defensive team, and that's still the bedrock of their team. I think this Ohio State team is more explosive passing the ball through the air than last year's team was. And I think that's the hope for Ohio State is it doesn't come down to that last second because you've got a little more offensive firepower than you did a year ago.
Do you think that Will Howard, the first drive was brilliant? Did he get a little tight? Was there, or because they couldn't stretch the field, they had a couple of chances to hit Smith or whatever, but did he start to play a little bit tight in that, especially that second quarter?
I don't know that I would use tight because I think that, if you watch through the game, I think there were a lot of instances of him taking chances down the field. I do think there was a stretch there in the middle of the game where you could sense some frustration with some of the penalties, with some of the lapses on the offensive line. I can remember one moment, it was either in the second or third quarter. I don't remember exactly which drive, but he either got sacked or he got pressured and had to throw the ball away. And you could kind of see him like spike the ball in frustration. And so I do think there was a point there in that game where Ohio State, I think for me, like sitting up there was a part of that game where I'm starting to thinking, is this going to be Michigan all over again? Because it was kind of that similar script there for a while where Ohio State's defense kept making the plays it needed to make, but its offense couldn't put drives together. And I think you started to wonder there for a bit, is this going to be a repeat of a Michigan game where Ohio State just can't put together the drive that it needs? But all the differences, unlike in that game this time around, the fourth quarter, the Buckeyes were able to make the plays they needed on both sides of the ball to eventually get that win.
What did you think about Texas' ability, just in general during that game? But particularly, I think the thing most talked about was their ability to basically eliminate Jeremiah Smith from the game plan. Your thoughts on just how they stacked up in that particular angle? I'm sure there's going to be a concerted effort to try and correct that against the Irish if at all possible.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit because you look at what Jeremiah Smith did against Tennessee and Oregon. He went into that game and you almost had this feel like this guy's unstoppable, like nobody can stop him. And Texas found a way to do that. They effectively took him out of the game. And so you got to give them credit for that. And I'm sure Notre Dame is studying everything they can from that game to try to duplicate that. I would be surprised if Jeremiah has one catch for 3 yards again in the national championship. But certainly I think there's things Notre Dame can learn. I mean, a lot of it goes back to the fact that Texas has a really good secondary. I mean, maybe the best secondary in the country this year. And so I think, they had an ability to match up with Jeremiah Smith that very few teams do. But Notre Dame has a really good secondary too. So it'll be interesting to see if they can duplicate that at all.
Yeah, the UT's defense was good, and I tell you what, in the end, that's what gave them a chance because they started to shut down Ohio State's run game. Let's go back to the screen pass before the half. 7-7 after all of what I had seen for the 29 minutes. I was like, damn, Texas, I think, should be fortunate that they're tied right now because of how it could have, the way it was. That play, what was it like watching that happen? And I saw what Henderson made a cutback to avoid Makuba. And, I mean, it was like a kid being shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, I mean, Travion, that's what Travion can do. He's one of the most explosive backs in the country, and, he gets a head of steam in the open field. He can really do some special things, and I think we saw that several times in this game. And, certainly I think, you think to, all the great plays he's made in his career, that's probably the best one right there because, you're thinking at that point, you're thinking, they're probably just going to, run one play and let it go into the half. And, it was on paper a pretty safe play call. Travion just made a spectacular play. I think, he gains 10, 15 yards. They're probably calling a timeout. They're probably trying to set something up to get in range for a field goal. But, they didn't have to worry about any of that because he just made such a spectacular play.
Dan, this team is loaded for Bear. They're so deep and all these things. What would you say is the thing that will trip them up in this Notre Dame game? Can Notre Dame make this game like the Michigan game?
Well, certainly I think the biggest question mark is the offensive line because I think you saw against Texas, I think that offensive line, which has been the question mark of his team all season, especially since Josh Simmons and Seth McLaughlin went down, didn't play as well against Texas as it had in the first two CFP games. So I think certainly, if you're Notre Dame, you're hoping you can replicate some of that. You'd certainly like to have Riley Mills still if you're Notre Dame, but they've still got enough talent up front that I think they can cause some problems for Ohio State in the trenches. I think that, if you can get Ohio State's offense out of whack, like Texas did for a lot of that game, then you've got a chance. But I think if you're Notre Dame, you're going to have to, because I think with Notre Dame being a very run-heavy offense and how well this Ohio State run defense has been, if this game becomes a shootout, it's going to strongly favor Ohio State. And so I think, if you're Notre Dame, you have to make it like that Michigan game. You have to make it a low-scoring, tight battle. If you do that, you're going to have a chance. But if you allow Ohio State to get Jeremiah Smith going again, to get that explosive passing game going, I think Ohio State will certainly have the upper hand.
Dan, as somebody who lives in the South and, doesn't have in-depth personal knowledge of Ohio State and the fan base, I mean, that's why we have you on, is to give us some insight on that. What's the feel about playing Notre Dame? Obviously, whoever you're playing, you just want to beat them to win a national championship, but you'd think these teams have played a lot more than they have over the course of the last 100 years. They really haven't played all that often, but when they have, it's been all Ohio State over the last few decades. So just how is Notre Dame sort of viewed in terms of, Ohio State fans and opponents overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting because, like you said, they've kind of become a familiar foe here the last few years. But historically, these are not two teams that have played each other very often, despite the fact they're only a few hours away from each other. So, I think that, it's probably an opponent that, there's probably some more confidence for Ohio State fans than maybe if you're going against a Georgia type team or an Alabama type team, because you do have a very good history against them in all the recent games that you've played against them. But, I think there's also some pride, I think, for people up in this area of, hey, we've got two Northern Midwest teams in the national championship game. Cause it's, there's been such, an SEC presence in that game in recent years. But I think for, 2 years in a row now to have two Northern teams playing in the national championship game is, I think, something that a lot of people up here take pride in.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors, Ohio State, Notre Dame. It's a long wait, but I can see where the decompression of this week might help. Everybody kind of just take a deep breath. I wish they were playing this week because it's just such momentum after the two games we saw. Any health issues that Ohio State has to kind of make sure that some players are healed between now and Monday?
Nothing major. The biggest question right now would be Denzel Burke, one of their starting cornerbacks. He suffered a shoulder injury late in the first half of that game against Texas, and he didn't play the rest of the game. So, he'll be one to monitor. We did see JT Tuimoloau, tweak his ankle in the first half against Texas, but was able to return in the second half, was still very productive. Will Howard had that welt on his hand, but that didn't, really affect him at all. So I think by and large, Ohio State, at this point of the season, obviously they've lost those two really good offensive linemen, which is, something that continues to be something they have to work through. But other than that, to not have any other major injuries, I think to be playing your 16th game of the season, you feel pretty good about where you're at right now.
Okay, Dan, I have one question. So say they win next week, and the Michigan game means nothing. How will that faction of the Ohio State fan base that holds all of their emotions on that one game every year deal with that, and will they need some sort of therapy?
I mean, there's always going to be a segment of this fan base who puts the Michigan game above all else. It's going to be, it holds so much weight in both Ohio State and Michigan circles that it's certainly something that I know that if Ohio State wins, it's only going to make the Michigan fans louder about the fact that they beat Ohio State this year, and they've beaten Ohio State 4 years in a row. So that's something Ohio State fans are going to have to live with at least until next November. Michigan fans are still going to have those bragging rights, but I think by and large, the general tone of a fan base is a heck of a lot different right now than it was 6 weeks ago. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about that there was a not insignificant portion of the Ohio State fan base who was ready for a coaching change after Ohio State lost to Michigan. And now Ryan Day is one step away from becoming a national champion. So it's certainly been a pretty massive tone shift around this program over the last 6 weeks.
It's kind of like they'll sleep with one eye open if he wins the national title, but by God, next November, he better watch his you-know-what, right?
Yeah, I mean, the pressure of winning that game is not going to go away. So
no,
even winning the national championship, that's not going to suddenly give him a free pass in the Michigan game. But when there was all the talk about the hot seat stuff, I think he can certainly put that away with one more win.
I thought one of the questions yesterday when they asked him about Lou Holtz because of that thing about tough and all that, and have you talked to him since? Nope. It was brought up. I don't know if they will. Dan, thank you, man. Great stuff. Congratulations on the win for Ohio State. Should be one great game to watch. I hope next Monday against Notre Dame. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Dan Holt, he is from 11 Warriors covering the Buckeyes of Ohio State.